Okay, last two sections. So in this part, we want to talk about laying out the viewing room, a little bit on kind of viewing the software, talking about small portraits in the viewing room itself, and obviously how to sell live. We're going to run through a bit of a live kind of session. Obviously, it's a lot easier if we've been in person, where we were at the Flash Centre in London, saying hi to all the Flash Centre boys from throughout the UK. Again, we're going to try and kind of just work it through for you to actually show it. It's a lot obviously easier when I've got people in the viewing seat to run it through. And then we're going to talk about the order before we move on to the likes of the negative selling and things. So the first thing I want to talk about is a reveal wall. I know that many of you have been influenced to introduce a reveal wall into your portrait businesses, basically shelves on a wall that you basically show prints in mounts with to the client. This isn't new. It's been around for a very long time. In fact, in the early 80s, it was pretty much the only way that we could sell images all around a tabletop. As far as the reveal wall, yes, it is kind of an encouragement for them to sell boxes of prints in mounts. And that's why everybody who produces, manufacturers, in sales, who create those products, they want you to do that more than anything else. However, what it won't do is easily allow you to actually sell wall art, because really all they're interested in is selling a box of prints and so on. So even though this is a technique that you could use, I'm still recommending that we use either a projector or a very large television, or plug in into the client's own home's television, and we can talk about that later on anyway. So reveal wall is a method, but it's really based around female photography, i.e. boudoir makeovers and some teams, rather than actually a family portraiture. So when we start to talk about setting up the viewing room, obviously we've got a kind of an idea of what's in here, and whatever is in front of the client is basically what we want them to buy. So if you imagine we're looking at that photograph on the screen for a minute with me with some photographs, basically if that is behind the sofa as it looks like on screen, it's not really what the client can easily see. But if we turn that sofa around towards the projection wall here, now they can actually see the images alongside. So if somebody sat in that seat, really what we want them to see is the 40-inch here, the 30-inch there, and basically the 24. If I wanted them to actually sell the 30-inch more than anything else, the 30-inch would be here, in fact, okay, and the 24 the other side. The reason being is that the further you take something away from somebody, the smaller it looks, okay? So just so when we're looking about the real estate, what we want to make sure is that we are not killing the space. We really want to make sure that everything feels like it's in the client's home, and we're basically trying to make them feel like it would exist in their home. So in other words, I know I've got some images down on the floor here, but if you're in your viewing room, you've got like another image there and another image below that one as well and so on, then basically all you're doing is not showing a real living space. And that's how you've got to set up the viewing room. It's absolutely essential. The thing I talk about a lot is about maximizing your real estate. So for you who can see us on the webcam, basically if this was a small little studio, come viewing room, everything else with it, and basically that was the only wall we had, and you can see on that wall there's a radiator, and so basically I'd have to roll the colored paper down to hide it, to be a part of my shooting room. The benefit of maximizing the real estate in that way is that I take the paper up, of course, then what I'm revealing is the images. So if it was a kind of a small little studio space that you have, perhaps a double converted garage size, or a small office space that you've converted into a small business, and you could actually just unravel or reveal, as you say, the actual images behind the paper. So in other words, as the clients are getting all their stuff together, the first thing would be is to take the paper up to reveal behind actually your main sales wall, so you can start to talk about it straight away. Keep it simple. So if in doubt, just minimize everything on display and everything that you show. My wife Debbie proved that when we retired in 2001, we turned one of the it was like an old granny annex in our house when we bought it as such, really. We turned that into a reception room come viewing room and things, really. And basically, when I said to her, what do you want on the walls? I wish I could find a photograph of it, in fact, because it would be really great to show. But I said, what do you want on the walls? She said, oh, just let's keep it simple, shall we? I said, okay, what do you want? So she said, I'll have that frame, which was like an antique silver, but a modern styling of it. Basically, it was silver and gold fleck, so it was almost like rubbed, but it was really contemporary for its time. And everything was 30-inch square around the whole walls, except for one wall, which was 40 by 30. And then within the 30-inch square, we either had 20-inch images or 24-inch images. Mainly, they were 24 images. And basically, for 7 years, the majority of our sales were all that frame in that style, because that's what the client saw. So if you need to actually keep things simple, if you don't complicate your viewing room, you kind of simplify the taste, then pretty much you can get away with one style of frame, perhaps in just different colors. I think when you start to lay out your viewing room, you have to, first of all, put your photography in taste. So in other words, it's not just what do you want to sell them, but also, is it right for the kind of client that's going to be buying from you? Is it going to be right for their home? That's what we've got to look at. And I suppose that's why the contemporary black, down in the reception gallery downstairs, we've got pretty much our kind of back to basics 1992 to 2001, as it were. Basically, that most of our framing around the gallery spaces was all a simple big black frame with a big chunky white mount with a smaller image within inside. And basically the benefit of that was that it just was classy. Now, I was mainly a black and white photographer when we opened the studio up. I had to change my style and my styling because a lot of people wanted color photography in the 80s. And so I did kind of bend like a reed instead of snap like a twig. But in the heart of me, I'm still mainly a black and white photographer, and that would be most of what I would be showing would be black and white around and things, really. So what do you want to sell them? If it would be black and white photography, it needs to feature in the viewing room as black and white photography, black and white on your website, black and white in your literature and so on, as obviously with a splatter of color if that's what you're going to be doing. But you have to decide on what you're going to be selling then. Now, as far as viewing software is concerned, I really don't care what you use. The first thing I would say is that if you're just getting into in-person sales, minimize costs. You don't want to just spend something very, very expensive, especially at current times. But if you're like sort of a fundy user like I am for album design and so on, you could use their software as a proofing and an image showing on the wall and things, really. We've done some sessions based on that as well with the Business Live, so it's worth watching that on the Academy. It's a great piece of software. Plus you've got specific software designed for the photography industry, but it's really designed for the senior market in America rather than for family portrait market throughout the world. That is Pro Select, and it does a really good job. It's quite expensive, but it does a really good job. But if you're just getting going, you could be using Lightroom or Bridge, like I'm going to be showing you in Bridge later on. So I really don't care, but just know how to use it. So if you are using the likes of Pro Select or Fundy, you know specifically how to use it in the way that it's designed to. You set up the parameters, the special sizes, and so on to make sure it works well for you. Okay, so we're getting ready to do the sale now. Okay, so this is sales day, and I'm ready at least the day before for my sales, so I'm not leaving things to the last minute. And one of the most important things that we're going to show the client before we get going is going to be a slideshow. That slideshow is designed to make sure we bring back some of the atmosphere, the excitement, the emotion of the day itself. And obviously music and photographs together, they will evoke that. So obviously choosing the right music for it is absolutely key. We tend to have a studio master on the likes of Animoto, and we would basically just duplicate the master, add the images in, basically save it out again, so it's almost no work. An Animoto show can be created from beginning to end within probably 10 minutes, a part of the flow. So once we've edited all the images and they are fully finished, there's going to be three things I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be uploading them to Animoto. I'm going to be uploading them into sticky albums for the phone app. And I'm going to be using the Fundy software to create an album design ready for the actual showing. So I need to make sure I've got my slideshow ready. I need to make sure I've got my images ready. And I need to make sure I've got my client information card so I remember them, who they were, and so on, especially if you're not the salesperson, if you're the salesperson and not the photographer. You need to make sure that you've got all the client information to know that little Molly was a little terror, but the images look fantastic, and little Ellie was an absolute angel, and so on and so on. But that client information is absolutely key. Another piece of information that we get during discovery by the photographer would be, when was the last time you had a photograph done? So that is kind of talked about perhaps at the end of the shoot, before we're going out to the gallery to book them into the viewing. And the reason we want to know that is how badly they've been trained. Because realistically for me, I want a client that is with their first child, or I want a client that basically is multi-generational, which will be a problem for the next 3 months, obviously. But a client who's multi-generational with a lot more money to spend. Why? Because if it's the first child, they probably haven't been trained badly by another photographer. So if you get one of my clients coming to you, you're lucky because I've trained them in the sales room. All you'll be doing is downselling because you haven't got the confidence like we have in our sales room. But if I get one of your clients and all you've been doing is selling them cheap digitals for the past 1 or 2 sessions that they've had done, they're going to come into my viewing room and be shocked. So it is this educational element, and basically whatever client we're going to get, we've got to almost retrain them or train them from scratch. And it's interesting to know in the client information where they've been, because we can pretty much gauge from there if we're going to have a problem in the sales room or not. I need to make sure I'm going to have the correct price list at hand in case there was a promotional one, or there's a crossover of years or a crossover of change. We would probably be having at least 3 price changes during the course of a year, especially when we were dealing with a lot of American products, a lot of Belgian products at one stage, with the dollar and the euro kind of changing at the time. We need to make sure I've got the album design. I mentioned that in Fundy. It's basically an auto design, so I just say it 20 sides, and basically I throw the images in. It tells me how many images per side I want, and basically it'll just do the rest, and then I do a quick finesse, and then I output it ready for a showing at the end to show them how great it looks. And of course I've got to have some way to take the order and some way to take a payment as well. So confidence. If we've done that PSPS right, in other words, we've understood the photographer has warned them about all the pricing, the sizing and everything else. They've excited them about the collections. We can pretty much go into the sales room a little bit more confident, knowing that the photographer has at least given them some idea of what's going to go on and how much things are going to cost. So it would allow for you to have a little bit more belief in what you're selling. Obviously, if you don't believe in what you're selling, in other words, you still believe that you're creating average photography and you're not doing anything special compared to the other photographers and so on, then only you can go ahead and change these things. I can't do that for you now, but you have to go out and do that. So this is a perfect opportunity in these next few weeks or months to really redesign yourself, redesign your technique, and really design your shoot sheets to actually create those amazing sessions. Obviously, the viewer has got to know their product and prices inside out. They've also got to know the software. They're going to know their client. When they arrive, they're going to try and build a rapport with that client straight away. So we're going to be talking about little Molly and little Tara she was, but little Ellie and how brilliant she was, and so on. And then we're going to help the client to buy, as we all find it difficult to make decisions. So it's not about hard selling, I promise you. Everything that we're going to be doing now in the sales room is not about the hard sell at all. I'd encourage you to always have a 2-tier price list. So on the price list, we've got a viewing price. That's the price they're going to be paying if they're placing their order, which they should on the viewing day. That explains that on the back here as well. And there's also a full price. That means if they're going away and not making the decision. Pretty much I can guarantee you that most people that leave the viewing room without making the decision and paying you are going to really not spend a lot, or they're going to just devalue their order every single 24 hours. It's going to go down and down and down. So you need to nail it in the viewing room, because if you don't, it's just going to get worse. And remember, do not be pushing the sales room, because it can really bite you in the butt. And you don't really want to have a client ringing you up the next day and say, I'd like to cancel the order, or can I review it, or whatever it is. From time to time that will happen, and that will happen because they basically got buyer's remorse. It's no problem, but it is a problem, but we'll never stop that as long as we don't push. So some salesmen speak for a minute, all right? Always listen twice as much as you talk. That's why you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. When the slideshow is on, shut up, all right? No comment, just basically just listen and watch and allow them to enjoy the photographs. Don't even comment if they say anything, all right? That's absolutely key. We want to make sure that when the lights come up, we're going to explain to them what's going to happen. We're going to guide them through their selection to get to the best of the best. Remember words that you use. We don't want any negative selling going on. In other words, I don't want to use the words, okay, we can take out the ones you don't like. As far as I'm concerned, all the images that I'm going to be presenting to the client, there is nothing wrong with them. I'd prefer to show them less rather than more, because I want to just show them the best of the best of the best. And if I need to move a face or an expression or eyes from one image to another just to get to the viewing room stage, I will do that without even a second thought, because I need to show them perfect. In the same way, if we were a boudoir photographer, I need to do a bit of a nip and a tuck and a smoothing to make sure the client looks a little bit better than they do in real life. We all want that, as we discussed in session 1. Okay. Then last but not least, once selected, we're going to start to talking about products. And if you listen to the client, you know what the buying signals are going to be. So they're going to be going, ooh, and ah, or I love that, I like that, and so on. And those are the ones that are going to be quickly to be higher star rated going throughout. Remember, we don't want to be shy about the product and the prices. That's when we're going through it, okay? Remember to discuss where the images are possibly going to be hung. So when we start to talk about that, you'll see that now in the live viewing. Let them discuss together a little bit, but avoid from leaving the room at any cost, because they're going to talk themselves out of buying anything. Obviously, if they do turn around to you and say, do you mind if you give us a minute? Then we've got to do that. Oh, do you guys want another coffee then? And basically, I'll whip out and just do that, or whatever it'll be. Oh, do you know what? I need to go pick up some more prices anyway. We'll get those. Find a way, but don't take too long. A coffee can almost take too long to make. You want to be back into that viewing room straight away. Never presume they have finished all ordering, as you should never know their budget. In other words, just because they've said yes to buying one wall art, we want to continue on selling wall art before we move on to anything else. Let them tell you what they're doing. Don't presume that you know it at all with it. Only give an offer if essential to closing the deal. And what it would be, as a rule of thumb, would not be a financial discount. It would be giving them extra product. For an example, you know, I talked about the 10x8. That has a value of £225, but it's costing me about 20 quid. I've got to make sure I offer more of those. In other words, you know, I can't give you a £200 discount, sorry, on the order, but what I can do is I can give you perhaps 3 of the 10x8s or 2 of the 10x8s. Would that help you? So find a way to close the deal, but we never really want to discount money, because that is straight away lost profit, and you don't want to be dealing with that.